The council chamber floated in the void between stars. It had been there for 3,000 years, a massive station built around an ancient neutron star. Inside the Great Hall, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats. The air recyclers hummed quietly, mixing atmospheric requirements for dozens of different life forms. Some breathed oxygen. Others needed methane. A few existed as energy patterns, held together by magnetic fields. Today, the chamber was filled with tension. Day One stood in the center of the room. He wore the dark blue uniform of the human expeditionary fleet. The fabric was simple, practical. Nothing like the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor worn by the other species around him. He was young for a human commander. Barely 40 years old, his black hair was cut short and his face showed no emotion as hundreds of alien eyes watched him. The Vreni overseer Thelmarax rose from his seat. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. His species had founded the council 2,000 years ago, after the last Great War. When he spoke, his voice boomed through translation devices that converted his words into every language present. "Commander Day One of Earth," Thelmarax said, "you stand before the Galactic Council as a representative of humanity. Your species was discovered 200 years ago. We placed your world under observation. We watched you fight your wars, destroy your environments, create weapons of mass destruction. We deemed you unready for contact." Day One said nothing. He simply waited. 50 years ago, you achieved faster than light travel," Thelmarax continued. "Without our guidance, without our approval. Since then, you have colonized 12 star systems. You have encountered 6 other species and established contact without council authorization. You have developed technologies that we do not understand. Commander, the council demands an explanation." Day One took a breath. "We didn't know we needed permission," he said calmly. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. Species whispered to each other in a dozen different languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up with the sudden noise. Ambassador Heijin stood from her position in the gallery. She was human, one of the first of her kind to work with the Council. For 30 years, she had served as the official observer to Earth, reporting back on humanity's development. She was old now, her hair completely gray, her face lined with wrinkles. She carried a data tablet in her trembling hands. "Overseer," she said, "I have completed my assessment of human expansion. Present your findings," Thelmarax commanded. Heijin activated her tablet. Holographic displays appeared above the council floor. Images of human ships, human colonies, human cities spreading across alien worlds. Charts showing technological development. Graphs comparing human capabilities to other council species. "In 50 years, Heijin began, humanity has achieved what most species require 500 years to accomplish. Their faster-than-light drives are 17 times more efficient than our current standard. Their computing systems operate on quantum principles we are still trying to understand. They have reverse-engineered technology from the precursor ruins on Europa, one of their moons." "Impossible," said a representative from the Kelthani hives. "The precursor technology is beyond anyone's understanding. Even our best scientists cannot activate their devices." "Humanity activated them," Heijin said quietly. "They didn't fully understand the technology. They simply experimented until it worked. Trial and error on a massive scale." Daiwan watched the displays. He recognized some of the images. The colony on New Seoul. The mining operations in the Taiyang system. The research stations scattered across a dozen worlds. His people had been busy. "This is precisely why we have protocols," Thelmarax said. "Uncontrolled development leads to disaster. How many of your people died in these experiments, Commander?" "Thousands," Daewon admitted. "But millions more live because of what we learned. Unacceptable." Another council member said, This one was from the Orthani collectives, a species that looked like floating jellyfish. Advancement must be slow, careful, controlled. This is the council way. Daewon turned to face the Orthani representative. With respect, he said, we didn't ask for the council way. The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted in anger. Some demanded that humanity be sanctioned. Others called for military intervention. A few simply stared at Daewon with what might have been fear. Thelmarax raised two of his forearms. Commander Daewon, he said slowly, the Galactic Council has maintained peace and order for 3,000 years. Every species in known space follows Council law. Every species submits to Council authority. Every species accepts our guidance in technological development, territorial expansion, and diplomatic relations. This is not negotiable. Then we have a problem, Daewon said. Explain. The Council claims authority over humanity, but humanity never agreed to Council authority. We didn't sign your treaties. We didn't ask to join your organization. You watched us from a distance and decided our fate without our input. Now, you demand that we follow rules we never agreed to. This is how it works, Thelmarax said. All species must integrate into galactic society. There is no alternative. There is always an alternative, Daewon replied. Hai-Jin stepped forward again. She looked at Daewon, then at the council members. I must report something else, she said. Something that I have been reluctant to include in my official assessments. Speak, Thelmarax commanded. Humanity is aware of Council military capabilities, Hai-Jin said. They have studied every battle record available. They have analyzed Council ship designs, weapon systems, and tactical doctrines. And they have concluded that in a direct military confrontation, the Council cannot stop human expansion. The silence that followed was absolute. Are you saying, a council member finally asked, that this species believes they could defeat the combined might of 47 star nations? I am saying, Hai-Jin replied, that they have already prepared for that possibility, and their military strategists believe they would win. Daewon met Thelmarax's eyes. The Vreni overseer looked ancient and tired. Commander, Thelmarax said quietly, what does humanity want? To be left alone, Daewon said. To explore and expand at our own pace. To make our own mistakes and achieve our own victories. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to destroy the Council. We just want to be free. And if we refuse, Daewon smiled sadly, then you'll try to stop us. And you'll fail. And when you fail, the other species will see it. They'll wonder why they follow Council authority if that authority cannot be enforced. Thelmarax sat down heavily in his seat. Around the chamber, council members whispered to each other. Fear and anger, mixed with something else. Uncertainty. For 3,000 years, the council had been absolute. Now, they faced a species they could not control, could not intimidate, could not contain. Humanity was beyond their reach. And everyone in that chamber knew it. The council fleet gathered at the edge of human space. 600 warships from 12 different species formed a massive blockade. Their hulls gleamed in the light of distant stars. Energy shields shimmered around each vessel. Weapon arrays powered up, ready to fire at a moment's notice. This was the largest military operation in Council history. Inside the command ship, Admiral Korthaven of the Vreni Empire studied the tactical displays. His forearms moved across control surfaces, checking readiness reports from every ship in the fleet. Everything was perfect. Every vessel was in position. Every weapon system showed green. The humans will surrender, he said to his officers. When they see this fleet, they will understand. They have no choice. On the bridge of the human frigate, Indomitable, Captain Bo-Ra sat in her command chair and watched the same tactical display. 37 human ships faced 600 council vessels. The numbers were ridiculous. Any sane person would see this and surrender immediately. Bo-Ra was not feeling particularly sane today. Engineering, she said into her communications device. Status report. Ready, Captain, came the reply. The voice belonged to Tae-Young, a young engineer who looked barely old enough to serve in the military. He was 23 years old and had already redesigned half the ship's power systems. The dimensional field generators are online. Shields are stable. We're ready to do something really stupid. Good, Bo-Ra said. Stand by. The Council Admiral's face appeared on the main view screen. Korthoven looked impressive and intimidating. His stone-like features showed no emotion. Human vessels, he said. You are surrounded. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. The Council will take control of your ships and escort you back to Earth. Your expansion into space is over. You will submit to Council authority and follow proper integration protocols. You have 10 minutes to comply. Bo-Ra stood up from her chair. She smoothed her uniform and smiled at the view screen. Admiral Korthaven, she said. Thank you for the generous offer. We respectfully decline. This is not an offer, Korthaven replied. This is a demand backed by overwhelming force. You have 37 ships. We have 600. Your technology may be advanced, but you cannot overcome these numbers. You're probably right, Bo-Ra said. But we're going to try anyway. She cut the communication channel. Engineering, she said. Activate dimensional shields. All ships. Execute pattern Delta. In the engineering bay, Tae-Young's hands flew across his control console. The dimensional field generator hummed to life. It was technology that humanity had discovered by accident 3 years ago. Scientists studying the oceans of Europa had found precursor ruins buried under the ice. Inside those ruins were devices that bent space and time in ways that violated every known law of physics. Human engineers didn't understand the technology. They just made it work through trial and error. Lots of error. The first 12 test ships had vanished completely. The 13th test ship had appeared in orbit around a star 17 light-years away with its crew perfectly safe but very confused. Eventually, they figured out how to use the technology for defensive shields. The Council fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds streaked toward the human ships, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The tactical displays showed certain destruction for the human vessels. Then the weapons vanished. One moment, the deadly ordnance was crossing the space between the two fleets. The next moment, it simply wasn't there anymore. The energy beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds had disappeared into dimensional folds created by humanity's shields. They didn't explode. They didn't hit anything. They just ceased to exist in normal space. On the Council command ship, alarms blared. What happened? Korthaven demanded. Where did our weapons go? Unknown, Admiral, an officer replied. Our sensors show the weapons entered some kind of spatial distortion around the human ships. We cannot track them. Fire again, Korthaven ordered. The Council fleet fired a second volley, then a third, then a fourth. Every time, the weapons vanished into the dimensional shields. The human ships sat in space, untouched, unharmed, completely protected by technology the Council couldn't understand. Then the human ships moved. They didn't move like normal spacecraft. Council vessels were large and powerful, but slow to maneuver. Human ships were smaller, faster, and they moved with a grace that seemed impossible. They dove through the Council formation like fish swimming through water. They spun and twisted and turned in ways that should have torn them apart from the gravitational forces. But they didn't fire their weapons. Not a single shot. Bo-Ra watched the tactical display as her ships danced through the enemy formation. Her pilots were good, the best humanity had. They had trained for this exact scenario for months. The plan was simple. Show the Council that their weapons were useless. Show them that human ships could go anywhere they wanted. Don't kill anyone. Just prove a point. On the Council command ship, panic was setting in. Admiral, an officer said. Human vessels are moving through our formation at will. Our weapons cannot touch them. Our ships cannot intercept them. They're too fast. Can we ram them? Korthaven asked. They're too maneuverable, sir. They avoid our ships with ease. Korthaven stared at the tactical display. In all his years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The human ships were playing with his fleet. They weren't fighting. They were demonstrating superiority. Sir, another officer said, the Kelthany hive ships are requesting permission to withdraw. They say this battle is pointless. Denied, Korthaven said. We hold position. The Orthani vessels are also requesting withdrawal, sir. Also denied, sir. The Vreni cruiser. Determination reports catastrophic morale problems. Their crew is refusing to continue firing on targets they cannot hit. Korthaven closed his eyes. He was losing this battle without losing a single ship. The humans hadn't destroyed anything. They hadn't killed anyone. They had simply proven that the Council fleet was completely and utterly helpless against their technology. 3 hours after the battle began, Korthaven gave the order to withdraw. The Council fleet turned and retreated. 600 warships limping away from 37 human frigates. Not because they were defeated by superior firepower, but because they were defeated by superior technology, superior tactics, and superior training. On the Indomitable, Bo-Ra watched the Council ships jump to faster than light speed and disappear. Engineering, she said. Stand down dimensional shields. All ships, return to patrol routes. Captain, Taeyang said over the communications channel. That was incredible. We didn't fire a single shot. That was the point, Bo-Ra replied. We wanted to show them that violence isn't necessary. We wanted to prove we can defend ourselves without killing anyone. Do you think they understand? Bo-Ra looked at the empty space where the Council fleet had been. I think they're starting to, she said. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species under Council authority heard the story. The mighty Council fleet, the largest military force ever assembled in known space, had been defeated by a handful of human ships without a single shot fired by either side. In Council chambers across 47 star systems, representatives held emergency meetings. Some demanded another military action. Others questioned whether military action was even possible against humanity. A few quietly began to wonder what else the Council had been wrong about. In the Grand Council chamber, Thelmarax sat alone in the empty hall. The holographic displays showed news broadcasts from a dozen different species. All of them were talking about the human victory. Some called it humiliating. Others called it inspiring. Hei Jin entered the chamber. She had watched the battle from the observation deck. She had seen everything. They didn't kill anyone, she said quietly. I know, Thelmarax replied. They could have destroyed your entire fleet. I know. But they chose not to. Thelmarax turned to look at her. What does that mean, Ambassador? Hyjin thought about the question. It means, she said slowly, that humanity isn't trying to conquer the galaxy. They're trying to show us there's another way. A way without violence. A way without control. And what happens to the Council? Hei Jin had no answer for that question. Outside the station, in the darkness between stars, the galaxy was beginning to change. Dr. Jiwoo had never seen anything like the Kelthani homeworld before. From orbit, the planet looked beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. But as her shuttle descended through the atmosphere, the reality became clear. Every piece of land was covered with structures. Cities, stacked on top of cities. Billions of insectoid beings living in spaces barely large enough to hold them. The Kelthani were dying. Not from war or disease, but from overcrowding. Jiwoo's shuttle landed on one of the few remaining open spaces, a platform designated for diplomatic visits. She stepped out into the warm, humid air. The sounds of the city surrounded her. Millions of Kelthani moving, working, living in cramped conditions. The smell was overwhelming at first, but she forced herself to adjust. A Kelthani official approached her. The alien stood on 6 legs and had 4 arms. Its body was covered in a hard shell that shimmered with iridescent colors. Multiple eyes looked at Ji-woo from different angles. "Dr. Ji-woo," the Kelthani said through a translation device. "I am Coordinator Velthik. Thank you for coming. We were surprised when humanity requested this meeting." "Thank you for seeing me," Ji-woo replied. "I know your people are busy." Velthik made a gesture that might have been a laugh. "Busy" is an understatement. Our population reached critical levels 50 years ago. We have requested permission from the Council to expand to other worlds. They have denied our requests. Why? They say we reproduce too quickly. They say we would consume resources faster than they can be replenished. They say our expansion would destabilize the local sector. They have many reasons. They walking the replaying too. And walking the ports of 7. They walking the ports of 7. All of them result in my people suffering. Ji-woo pulled a data device from her pocket. She activated it, and holographic images appeared in the air between them. Uninhabited worlds with atmospheres and conditions similar to the Kelthani homeworld. There are 3 worlds within 10 light-years of your system, she said. All of them are suitable for Kelthani habitation. None of them have intelligent life. With proper terraforming technology, your people could establish colonies within 2 years. Velthik stared at the images. We know these worlds exist. The Council has forbidden us from colonizing them. What if the Council's permission wasn't required? Ji-woo asked. I don't understand. Humanity has developed advanced terraforming technology. We can help you establish colonies on these worlds. No Council permission needed. No restrictions. No regulations. Just your people expanding to new homes where they can actually live. Velthik's eyes focused entirely on Ji-woo. Why would you do this? What does humanity want in return? Nothing, Ji-woo said. We're offering this freely. No payment required. No political alliance demanded. No strings attached. Nothing in galactic politics is free, Doctor. Ji-woo smiled. That's because you've only dealt with the Council. Humanity does things differently. Ji-woo, Anatan. We believe every species has the right to expand, to grow, to live without artificial restrictions. We're offering you a chance to save your people. Take it or don't. The choice is yours. 3 months later, the first Kelthani colony ship left their homeworld. Human engineers helped design the vessels. Human technology made them possible. Within a year, 3 new Kelthani colonies were established. The overcrowding on the homeworld began to ease. For the first time in generations, Kelthani children had space to grow. The Council was furious. Emergency sessions were called. Sanctions were placed on humanity. Trade restrictions, travel bans, diplomatic isolation. The Council used every tool at their disposal to punish humanity for violating their authority. 15 Council member species ignored the sanctions. They had seen what humanity offered. They had watched the Kelthani colonies thrive. They wanted the same opportunities for their own people. Within months, dozens of species were secretly negotiating with human representatives. Trade agreements were signed. Technology was shared. The Council's authority was crumbling. Ambassador Hee-jin found herself in an impossible situation. She had spent 30 years building relationships with Council leadership. She believed in the Council's mission to maintain galactic peace. But now she watched as humanity systematically dismantled everything the Council had built. She requested a private meeting with Thel Marax. They met in a small room away from the main Council chambers. Just the 2 of them. No recording devices. No other officials. This conversation was off the record. You understand what your people are doing, Thel Marax said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Hee-jin replied. They're destroying the Council. They're offering other species a choice. That's different. Thel Marax leaned back in his chair. Is it? For 3,000 years, we maintained order. We prevented wars. We stopped species from developing weapons that could destroy entire planets. We regulated expansion to prevent resource conflicts. We created peace. You created control, Hagen said quietly. There's a difference. Explain. The Council doesn't ask species what they want. You tell them what they need. You make decisions for them. You restrict their growth, limit their development, control their future. You call it peace. They call it imprisonment. And what does humanity call it? Oppression. Thel Marax was silent for a long moment. We had reasons for everything we did, he finally said. Every regulation was created to prevent catastrophe. Every restriction was designed to protect species from themselves. Did you ever ask them if they wanted that protection? They wouldn't understand the dangers. That's exactly the problem, Hagen said. You assume other species are children who need guidance. Humanity assumes they're adults who deserve freedom. That's why species are turning to us. Not because our technology is better, but because we treat them as equals. News spread across the galaxy about the Kelthani success. Other species began openly defying Council regulations. Minor species that had lived under major power control for centuries suddenly had options. Human ships appeared in systems that had been isolated for generations. Human engineers offered technology that the Council had restricted for thousands of years. And then pilot Subin led the mission to Orthan. The Orthani were jellyfish-like beings that existed as energy patterns. Their homeworld had been strip-mined by Council-approved corporations for rare minerals. The Orthani had protested for decades, but the Council had always sided with the corporations, profit and efficiency over the rights of a minor species. Subin commanded a small task force of 5 human ships. They arrived in the Orthan system without warning. They positioned themselves between the mining vessels and the planet. And then they broadcast a message across every communication channel in the system. This system is now under human protection, Subin said. All mining operations will cease immediately. All corporate vessels will leave within 24 hours. The Orthani people will control their own world and their own resources. This is not negotiable. The corporations protested. They had Council authorization. They had legal rights to the minerals. They had contracts and agreements that went back centuries. Subin didn't care about any of it. When the mining vessels refused to leave, human ships disabled them. Not destroyed. Disabled. Engines were shut down. Power systems were neutralized. Weapons were deactivated. Within 6 hours, every corporate vessel in the system was floating helplessly in space, completely unable to function. And the entire operation was broadcast live across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as humanity freed the Orthani from corporate exploitation. They watched as human engineers helped the Orthani reclaim their world. They watched as a minor species, ignored and exploited for generations, finally had control of their own destiny. The message was clear. The Council could not protect their authority. The corporations could not enforce their contracts. The old order was finished. In the Grand Council chamber, representatives argued constantly now. Some demanded military action against humanity. Others suggested negotiation. A few quietly prepared to withdraw from the Council entirely. Thel Marax stood at the center of the chaos and realized the truth. The Council had already lost. Not because humanity was stronger. Not because their technology was superior, but because humanity offered something the Council never did. Hope. Species across the galaxy saw the Kelthani colonies thriving. They saw the Orthani free. They saw dozens of other species receiving human technology, human assistance, human friendship, with no strings attached. They saw a future where they controlled their own destinies. And once they saw that future, there was no going back. The 3,000-year-old Galactic Council was collapsing. Not from war, not from rebellion, but from simple obsolescence. Humanity had made them irrelevant. Hagen watched it all from her office. She felt sad but not surprised. The Council had been built on control and fear. Humanity offered freedom and hope. The outcome was inevitable. She began writing her final report, a document that would explain to future generations exactly how humanity changed the galaxy forever. Not through conquest, but through kindness. The alarms started at 0300 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Science Officer Minji was on duty at humanity's Deep Space Monitoring Station when her instruments detected the anomaly. At first, she thought it was a sensor malfunction. The readings were impossible. They sing the space when her quarters stater, honor basing to the monitor. That is on Nodin. 1. Thousands of objects moving through space at incredible speeds. Energy signatures that matched nothing in any database. Then she remembered the old council records, the warnings that every species received when they joined galactic society. Stories that most people thought were myths or exaggerations. The Devourers had returned. Minji's hands shook as she activated the emergency communication system. This is Deep Space Station. 7 to Earth Command. Code Black. Repeat. Code Black. Multiple contacts entering known space from dark region. Signatures match historical Devourer patterns. Estimate 2,000 vessels. General Hyun-woo was in his office at Earth Command headquarters when the alert came through. He had been reviewing supply reports, the boring administrative work that filled most of his days. He was 62 years old and had served in the Human Defense Forces for 40 years. He had fought in the border wars during early expansion. He had commanded ships during the Council blockade incident. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The tactical display on his wall activated automatically, showing the incoming Devourer fleet. Each vessel was massive, grown rather than built. Biological ships with weapons that could crack planets. They moved with purpose, heading directly toward the most populated systems in known space. Hyun-woo had read the historical records. The Devourers had appeared 3 times before in galactic history. Each time, they had consumed entire civilizations. The last invasion, 5,000 years ago, had killed billions before the newly formed council had managed to drive them back. Barely. The council had been created specifically to prevent the next Devourer invasion. They regulated weapons development to ensure the galaxy had sufficient defenses. They controlled territorial expansion to prevent species from spreading too thin. Every restriction, every regulation, every rule had one ultimate purpose: survival. When the Devourers returned, now they had returned, and the council was falling apart. Hyun-woo activated the emergency command network. Within minutes, every human military leader in known space was on the communication channel. Faces appeared on his display. Admirals, generals, fleet commanders. You've all seen the reports, Hyun-woo said. The Devourers are back. The council is sending us a message. He played the recording. Thelmarax's face appeared. The Vreni overseer looked older than Hyun-woo remembered. Tired. Defeated. Commander Hyun-woo, the recording said. Now you will understand why the council existed. Why we restricted development. Why we controlled expansion. The Devourers consume everything in their path. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be negotiated with. They simply destroy. 5,000 years ago, we barely survived their invasion. We created the council to ensure the galaxy would be ready when they returned. But humanity has undermined our authority. Species have ignored our regulations. Military forces are scattered and unprepared. The Devourers will destroy us all. And it will be your fault. The recording ended. One of the admirals spoke. Sir, what are the council's plans? They're evacuating core worlds, Hyun-woo replied. Retreating to fortified positions. They estimate they can hold for maybe 6 months before their defenses are overwhelmed. And us? Hyun-woo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We attack. The room fell silent. Sir, another admiral said carefully. The historical records show that the council barely survived the last Devourer invasion with their full military force united. We have a fraction of their numbers. We also have technology they don't, Hyunwoo said. We have tactics they've never seen, and we have something else. We have a choice. The Council chose to hide and defend. We choose to attack. That's insane, someone said. Probably, Hyunwoo agreed. But since when has humanity done the sensible thing? The orders went out within the hour. Every human military vessel in known space received the same command. Gather at Rally Point Omega. Prepare for offensive operations. Bring everything. 3 days later, the human fleet assembled. 200 ships. Not the massive armada that the Council had fielded, but every vessel humanity could spare. Frigates, destroyers, carriers, and the prototype Titangent-class ships that had been in development for the past 5 years. They jumped to faster-than-light speed and headed directly toward the Devourer vanguard. The Devourers were attacking a system called Theta 9. 3 inhabited planets, home to billions of beings from 5 different species. The Council had ordered evacuation, but there wasn't enough time. Most of the population was still on the surface when the Devourer bioships entered orbit. Then the human fleet arrived. Captain Daewon, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanded from the bridge of the Titangent-class ship Indomitable Spirit. The vessel was enormous, nearly 5 kilometers long, built using human engineering and precursor technology reverse-engineered from the Europa ruins. All ships, he said calmly. Execute attack pattern Omega. Target the largest vessels first. Show them what humanity can do. The human fleet split into a dozen smaller groups. Each group attacked from a different angle, moving with coordinated precision that the Devourers had never encountered before. Human ships phased in and out of normal space using dimensional drive technology. They appeared, fired, and vanished before the Devourers could respond. Human weapons were different from anything the Council used. Missiles that manipulated probability fields, making it statistically impossible for them to miss. Energy beams that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Drone swarms controlled by quantum-entangled neural networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances. The Devourers were used to fighting enemies that stood still and traded firepower. Massive fleets that formed defensive lines and slowly ground each other down through attrition. They were not prepared for an enemy that fought like controlled chaos. A Devourer bioship, massive enough to carry millions of smaller organisms, targeted the Indomitable Spirit with its planet cracker weapon. The beam that emerged from the bioship could split a planet's crust and boil its oceans. It had destroyed countless worlds. The beam hit the Indomitable Spirit's dimensional shields and vanished. It reappeared 3 light-years away, harmlessly dissipating in empty space. Daewon smiled. Target that vessel. All forward weapons. Fire. The Indomitable Spirit's main weapon was something human engineers called the quantum disruptor. It fired a beam that existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously in multiple locations. When it hit a target, it collapsed into reality at the atomic level, literally pulling apart molecular bonds. The Devourer bioship tried to regenerate. Its organic hull attempted to heal the damage. But the quantum disruptor had disrupted the molecular structure so thoroughly that regeneration was impossible. The massive vessel broke apart, dying in the void. The battle lasted 72 hours. Non-stop fighting. Human crews worked in shifts, sleeping in their duty stations when they could, eating ration bars while monitoring their instruments. Ships were damaged. Some were destroyed. But the Devourer vanguard was annihilated, not driven back, not defeated, completely destroyed. 2,000 bioships, reduced to debris floating in space. The few surviving Devourers retreated, fleeing back toward dark space faster than anyone had seen them move before. Hyunwoo stood on Earth, watching the reports come in. Victory. Complete and total victory. Humanity had done in 3 days what the Council had needed years to accomplish 5,000 years ago. He activated the long-range communication system. The message was directed to dark space, to the region where the Devourers came from, to their homeworld. "This is General Hyun Woo of Earth," he said, "representing humanity and our allies. You attacked our space. You attempted to destroy our worlds. We have defeated your vanguard. We know where you come from. We know where your homeworld is. Leave now. Leave and never return. Or, we will come to your home, and we will end you." The message transmitted across dark space. No one knew if the Devourers would receive it. No one knew if they would understand it. But the message was sent. 3 days later, sensors detected the Devourer fleet in dark space. All of them, the entire species, abandoning their territory. They were running. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Devourers were afraid. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. Every species heard the story. Humanity, the species the Council had tried to control, had defeated an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. In the Grand Council chamber, Thelmarax sat alone. The hall was empty. Most representatives had abandoned their posts. The council was finished. He received a message from Hyun Woo. Just one sentence. "We didn't need your permission to survive." Thelmarax looked at those words for a long time. Then he did something he had never done in his entire life. He laughed. It was the laugh of someone who had finally understood a joke that had been obvious to everyone else. The council had been created to protect the galaxy from the Devourers. But the galaxy didn't need protection anymore. It had humanity. The Grand Council chamber was almost empty. Only 7 representatives remained out of the original 47. The magnificent hall that had once hosted debates shaping galactic civilization now felt hollow and abandoned. The holographic displays were dark. The translation devices were silent. The air recyclers hummed quietly in the emptiness. Researcher Yun-ha stood at the center of the chamber. She was young for a diplomat, only 35 years old, but she had been chosen to present humanity's proposal. She wore a simple gray suit, with no decorations or symbols of rank. In her hands, she carried a single data tablet. Thelmarax sat in his usual seat. He looked ancient now. The past year had aged him more than the previous century. His 4 arms rested limply on his chair. His stone-like features seemed weathered and cracked. "Researcher Yun-ha," he said quietly, "you requested this session. The Council has granted your request, though as you can see, we are not what we once were." "I understand, Overseer," Yun-ha replied. "I come with a proposal from humanity and our allied species." "How many allies does humanity have now?" 63 species have formally joined the coalition. Another 120 are in negotiations. Thelmarax made a gesture that might have been a sigh. "Nearly every species in known space. Please, share your proposal." Yun-ha activated her tablet. Holographic text appeared in the air above the chamber floor. "Humanity proposes the dissolution of the Galactic Council," she began, "to be replaced by a new organization. We call it the Galactic Commonwealth. Another government," Thelmarax said. "Another authority to control the galaxy." "No," Yun-ha said firmly. "Not a government. A voluntary association of free species. No species is required to join. No species can be expelled against their will. No regulations can be enforced without unanimous consent. No military action can be taken without agreement from all member species." One of the other representatives, a Kelthani named Velthik, leaned forward. "What would be the purpose of such an organization?" "To share knowledge," Yun-ha explained. "To coordinate on common threats. To facilitate trade and communication. To explore the galaxy together. But most importantly, to ensure that every species has the freedom to determine its own future." "This is chaos," said a representative from the Vreni Empire. "Without central authority, species will fight. Wars will break out. Resources will be depleted. Disasters will occur." "Probably," Yun-ha agreed. "And when those things happen, We'll deal with them together. As equals. Not as masters and subjects. Thelmarax stood slowly. He walked to the center of the chamber to stand near Yunha. I must ask you something, he said. Why does humanity do this? You have the power to conquer the galaxy. Your technology is superior to ours. Your military defeated the Devourers. You could impose your will on every species in known space. Why don't you? Number one. Number one. Number one. Yunha thought about the question. Because we remember what it was like to be controlled, she finally said. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. Nations conquered other nations. Empires rose and fell. People suffered under governments that claimed to know what was best for them. We learned, slowly and painfully, that freedom is more important than security. That choice is more valuable than control. We learned that the hard way. We don't want to repeat those mistakes. Noble words, Thelmarax said. But history shows that power corrupts. Eventually, humanity will want to rule the galaxy. Maybe, Yunha said. But we're going to try very hard not to. And if we fail, if humanity ever becomes what the Council was, then the other species will have the technology and knowledge to stop us. That's part of the proposal. Complete technology sharing. No secrets. Every species gets access to everything humanity has developed. The chamber fell silent. The representatives stared at Yunha in shock. Everything? Velthik asked. The dimensional drives? The quantum weapons? The precursor technology? You've reverse engineered? Everything? Yunha confirmed. We're posting all technical specifications to an open database that any species can access. No restrictions, no patents, no trade secrets. Complete transparency. You're giving away your military advantage, the Vreni representative said. Yes. Why? Because we want partners, not subjects. We want a galaxy where every species can defend itself, explore, and grow without asking permission. We want to end the age of empires and councils and authorities that tell people how to live. Thelmarax walked to the large window that looked out into space. Stars shone in the distance. Billions of them. Each one potentially home to life and civilizations yet unknown. I spent 2,000 years believing the council was necessary, he said quietly. I believed that without central authority, the galaxy would tear itself apart. I believed that species needed guidance, control, regulation. I believed we were protecting everyone. He turned to face Yunha. But I was wrong. We weren't protecting anyone. We were imprisoning them. And you've shown us there's another way. The council doesn't have to end, Yunha said. You could reform. You could join the Commonwealth as an equal member. No, Thelmarax said. The council is finished. It represents everything that humanity is trying to move beyond. Let it die with dignity. 3 months later, the Galactic Commonwealth held its first assembly. It was nothing like the old council sessions. There were no assigned seats, no hierarchy, no overseer controlling the discussions. Representatives from nearly 200 species gathered in a massive station, built cooperatively using technology and resources from dozens of worlds. Diplomatic Officer Yun Seo served as the moderator for the first session. Her job was not to control the discussion, but simply to make sure everyone who wanted to speak had a chance. Welcome, she said as the assembly began. This is the first gathering of the Galactic Commonwealth. We have no rules yet. No regulations. No laws. Today, we start building something new, together. The discussions went on for 3 weeks. Species shared their needs, their concerns, their hopes. Agreements were made. Trade routes were established. Scientific partnerships were formed. Defense pacts were signed. All voluntary. All based on mutual consent. On the final day, Thelmarax attended as an observer. He no longer held any official position. The Vreni Empire had joined the Commonwealth as an equal member. and they had elected new representatives. But Yunseo had invited him to witness the conclusion. "Do you see that?" Yunseo asked, gesturing to the assembled representatives. 80 different species working together, making decisions together. No one being forced, no one being controlled, just cooperation. "It's messy," Thelmarax observed. "Inefficient. Some of these discussions have gone in circles for hours." "Yes," Yunseo agreed. "But it's their mess, their inefficiency, their choice. And that matters more than perfect order." 10 years after the formation of the Commonwealth, humanity led a coalition fleet into dark space. The mission was to end the Devourer threat permanently. 300 ships from 40 different species made the journey. They found the Devourer homeworld abandoned. The species had fled to another galaxy, too afraid to remain anywhere near humanity. The coalition explored dark space thoroughly. They discovered ancient ruins, precursor technology far more advanced than anything found before. And they discovered something else. Evidence of other civilizations that had existed long before the current galactic age. Species that had risen, thrived, and vanished. Admiral Daewon stood on the bridge of the Commonwealth flagship Unity and looked at the scans of those ancient ruins. "How many civilizations have existed before ours?" he wondered aloud. "Dozens at least," replied Minji, now serving as the ship's science officer. "Maybe hundreds. And all of them are gone now." "Do you think the Council was right to be afraid?" Daewon asked. "Maybe strict control was necessary for survival." "Maybe," Minji said. "Or maybe those civilizations fell because they couldn't adapt, because they became rigid and controlled and lost the ability to change. We'll never know for sure. So we just keep moving forward," Daewon said. "Keep exploring, keep adapting, keep giving people choices. That's the plan." 100 years after first contact, Ambassador Heijin sat in her small apartment on Earth. She was 143 years old now, kept alive by advanced medical technology that humanity had developed and shared freely with all Commonwealth members. Her body was frail, but her mind remained sharp. She recorded her final log entry, a personal reflection on everything she had witnessed. "I was sent to observe humanity," she said into the recording device, "to make sure they followed the rules, to ensure they integrated into galactic society properly, to control them. But I learned something instead. I learned that control is not the same as safety, that order is not the same as peace, that authority is not the same as wisdom." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Humanity changed the galaxy, not because they were stronger or smarter. They changed it because they believed in something the Council had forgotten. They believed that every being has the right to determine their own path, to make their own mistakes, to achieve their own victories. They believed in freedom. The Council could only look on as humanity reshaped everything we had built. We thought we were watching our civilization crumble, but we were actually watching it transform into something better. Something that will last not because it's enforced, but because people choose it freely. Heijin closed the recording. Outside her window, she could see the lights of the city. Humans and aliens walking together on the streets below. Trading, talking, living side by side. No one forced to be there. Everyone choosing to participate. She smiled. It had taken her 100 years to understand what humanity had known all along. The galaxy didn't need overseers. It needed pioneers. And humanity had shown everyone how to be pioneers. The stars shone brighter now, lit by 1,000 species reaching upward together, unbound and free.